Hello, in this topic we will discuss about the project selection models. So the project selection models uh, are related to the project selection process. So project selection is the process of evaluating proposed projects or groups of projects and then choosing to implement some set of them so that the objectives of the parent organizations will be achieved. So, for example, a manufacturing firm can use evaluation or selection techniques to choose which machine to adopt in a part fabrication process. Uh, Another example is a TV station can select which of the several programs to rerun in its some specific time on the for the transmission weekday time slot. Uh, and for example, also a construction firm can select the best subset of a large group of potential projects on which to bid. Or in another example, or a hospital can find the best mix of psychiatric, orthopedic, obstetric, and other beds for a new wing in the hospital building. So each project will have a different costs, benefits, and risks. Rarely are these known with certainty. In the face of such differences, the selection of one project out of a set is a difficult task. So choosing a number of different projects, for example, a portfolio, is even more complex task. Talking about the models, we will discuss several techniques that can be used to help senior managers to select projects. So project selection is only one of the many decisions associated with project management. To deal with all of these problems, we use models. So we need such models because they abstract the relevant issues about a problem from the mass of detail in which the problem is embedded. Reality is far too complex to deal with in its entirety. So the model allows us to strip away almost all the reality from a problem, leaving only the relevant aspect of the real situation for us to deal with. So this process of carving away the unwanted reality from the bones of a problem is called modeling the problem. There are two basic types of project selection models, numeric models and non-numeric models. Both are widely used. Many organizations use both at the same time, or they use models that are combinations of the two. Non-numeric models, as the name implies, do not use numbers as inputs. The numeric models do, but the criteria being measured may be either objective or subjective. So it is important to remember that the qualities of a project may be represented by numbers and that subjective measures are not necessarily less useful or reliable than the objective measures. So before examining specific kinds of models within the two basic types, let's consider just that we wish the model to do for us. There are two critically important but often overlooked facts. First of all, models do not make decisions. Peoples do the decisions. Okay, the manager do not the model bears responsibility for the decision. The manager may delegate the task of making the decisions to a model, but the responsibility cannot be abdicated. And number two, all models, however sophisticated, are only partial representations of the reality they are meant to reflect. Reality is far too complex for us to capture more than a small fraction of it in any model. Therefore, no model can yield an optimal decision except within its own possibly inadequate framework. So now let's look at some of the project selection models. So first, non-numeric models. So as it was described. So these are the models that do not return a numeric value for a project to be compared with other projects. So these are really not models, but rather justifications for projects. And just because they are not true models does not make them all bad. Okay. So first of the one of the first of the non-numeric model is the sacred cow model. So it is often suggested by the top management. So in this case, the project is suggested by a senior and powerful official in the organization. Often the project is initiated with a simple comment such as, if you have a chance, why don't you look into this situation, and something like that. And there follows an undeveloped idea for a new product, for the development of a new market, for the design and adoption of a global database or an information system, or for some other project requiring an investment of the firm's resources. The immediate result of this bland statement is the creation of a project to investigate whatever the boss has suggested. The project is sacred in the sense that it will be maintained successfully until it is successfully concluded, or until the boss terminates it, uh, mm, which recognizing that the idea was bad. Okay, so this was the sacred cow project. The second type of uh, non-numeric model is the operating necessity. As an example, you can see that if a flood is threatening the plant, a project to build a protective dike does not require much formal evaluation because there is a threat for the flood. So, for example, if there is some company such as something like XYZ Steel Corporation has used this criteria and the following criteria also in evaluating potential projects. If the project is required in order to keep the system operating, uh, the primary operation becomes the primary question is then, is the system worth saving, and the estimated cost of the project at the estimated cost of the project. So if the answer is yes, the project costs will be examined to make sure they are kept as low as is consistent with the project success, but the project will be funded. And the third type of non-numeric model is the competitive necessity. So using this criteria, for a company such as XYZ Steel undertook a major plant rebuilding project in the late 1960s in its steel bar manufacturing facilities near some city. It has become apparent to this company's management that the company's bar mill needed modernization if the firm was to maintain its competitive position in that area. So although the planning process for the project was quite sophisticated, the decision to undertake the project was based on a desire to maintain the company's competitive position in that market. So, also in a similar manner, many business schools are restructuring their undergraduate MBA programs to stay competitive with the more forward looking schools. So, in large part, this action is driven by the declining numbers of tuition paying students and the need to develop stronger programs to attract them. So, we have these two types of models, operating necessity and the competitive necessity. So the investment in an operating necessity project takes precedence over a competitive necessity project but both types of projects may bypass the more careful numeric analysis used for projects deemed to be less urgent or less important to the survival of the firm. Uh, Another non-numeric model is the product line extension. In this case, a project to develop. In this case, Project to develop and distribute new products would be judged on the degree to which it fits the firm's existing product line, fills a gap, strengthens a weak link, or extends the line in a new desirable direction. Sometimes careful calculation or profitability are not required. The decision makers can act on their beliefs about what will be the likely impact on total system performance if the new product is added to the line. The next type of non-numeric model is the comparative benefit model. For this situation, assume that an organization has many projects to consider, perhaps several dozen. Senior management would like to select a subset of the projects that would most benefit the firm, but the projects do not seem to be easily comparable. So, for example, some projects concern potential new products, some require the conduct of a research and development project for a government agency, and some concern changes in production model methods. Others concern computerization of certain records and still others cover a variety of subjects not easily categorized. For example, a proposal to create a daycare center for employees with small children. So the organization has no formal method of selecting projects, but members of the selection committee think that some projects will benefit the firm more than other, even if they have no precise way to define or measure the benefit. So the comparative benefit model needs further discussion. So the concept of comparative benefit is widely adopted for selection decisions on all sorts of projects. Most organizations use the concept to make decisions about which of several social programs to fund. So senior management of the funding organization then examine all projects with positive recommendations and attempt to construct a portfolio that best fits the organization's aim and budget. So of the several techniques for ordering projects, the Q sort is one of the most straightforward. Uh, so in this Q sort model, first the projects are divided into three groups: good, fair, and poor. So according to their relative merits. If any group has more than 8 members, it is subdivided into two categories, such as fair plus and fair minus. And when all categories have 8 or fewer members, the projects within each categories are ordered from best to worst. So again, the order is determined on the basis of relative merit. The rater may use specific criteria to rank each project or may simply use a general overall judgment. So as an example, we can see this figure for the Q-sort model. So the process described may be carried out by one person who is responsible for evaluation and selection, or it may be performed by a committee charged with the responsibility. So as you can see in this figure, so if at the first of all, the projects are divided at the high level and the low level, and within that high level, then further high level, and then within that high level, there are some very high level and then high level projects are sorted out. So sorting of the projects based on the qualitative assessment is basically performed in the Q-sort method. There are other similar non-numeric models for accepting or rejecting projects. Although it is easy to dismiss such models as unscientific, they should not be discounted casually. These models are clearly goal-oriented and directly reflect the primary concerns of the organizations. The sacred cow model in particular has an added feature. Sacred cow projects are visibly supported by the powers that be. Full support by top management is certainly an important contributor to project success. Without such support, the probability of project success is sharply lowered. And one more method for the non-numerical model is the sustainability model. Uh, in the in this model, more and more organizations are building sustainability into the set of criteria that must be met for proposed projects to be selected for funding. Jewelry companies avoid the use of blood diamonds, and manufacturing firms avoid purchasing inputs from suppliers that use child labor. The sale of pharmaceutical of questionable purity or serious side effects is commonly far more costly in the long run than the cost of better quality control or the research needed for better drug design. So, in other words, sustainability focuses on long term profitability rather than short run payoff. To integrate sustainability into the organization's decision making requires the appointment of a senior manager with responsibility for the task. So, metrics must be developed to measure the results of policy changes to increase sustainability, and this often requires developing the soft measures we will discuss. Okay, so let us consider the numeric models. These are the models that return a numeric value for a project that can be easily compared with other projects. So their major types are profit or profitability types, real options, scoring, window of opportunity analysis, and discovery driven planning. So let's look at the numeric models, which are profit and profitability types. So under this, we can discuss two types of models. Uh, these are the models that look at the costs and revenues, payback period, and the discounted cash flow, or which is also called as the NPV or net present value model. So the payback period for a project is the initial fixed investment in the project divided by the estimated annual net cash flows from the project. So the ratio of these quantities is the number of years required for the project to repay its initial fixed investment. So for example, assume a project costs $100,000 to implement and has an annual net cash flow of inflow of $25,000. So then the payback period will be $100,000 divided by 25,000 is equal to 4 years. So this method assumes that the cash inflows will persist at least long enough to pay back the investment, and it ignores any cash inflows beyond the payback period. So the method also serves as an inadequate proxy for risks. The faster the investment is recovered, the less the risk to which the firm is exposed. Uh, so these were the drawbacks. And then discounted cash flow. Okay. The discounted cash flow, it is also referred to as the net present value method. The discounted cash flow method determines the net present value of all cash flows by discounting them by the required rate of return, also known as the hurdle rate, cutoff rate, and similar other terms as follows. So the formula for the net present value is this. So net present value is equal to, for the project, is equal to A naught plus sum of ft over 1 plus k plus PT. Okay. So where P is the predicted rate of inflation, K is the discount rate, F is the cash flow in time period T, initial cash flow, A is the initial cash flow investment, T is the number of years of life, and A is the higher A naught is the initial cash flow investment. So now higher is the net present value, higher is the uh, better is the project. Okay, so higher discount rate. On the other hand, higher the discount rate, then lower will be the net present value, because the cash flows will be discounted at the higher rate, as it is given in this formula. So because higher this value, lower will be the net present value. So as an example, for the net present value, let's assume that using our $100,000 investment with a net in cash inflow of $25,000 per year for a period of 8 years. Okay, for a period of 8 years, a required rate of return of 15%, and an inflation rate of 3%, then we can find the net present value, which will be equal to $1,939. So we can use this formula. Okay, $25,000 divided by 1 plus 0.5 plus 0.03, starting from t is equal to 1 to t is equal to 8, we can sum up all these terms. So this was the net present value method. Let's see one example for the net present value method. Psychoceramic Sciences Incorporated, PSI, a large producer of cracked pots and other cracked items, is considering the installation of a new marketing software package that will, it is hoped, allow more accurate sales information concerning the inventory, sales, and deliveries of its pots, as well as its vases designed to hold artificial flowers. The Information System Department has submitted a project proposal that estimates the investment requirement as follows: an initial investment of $125,000 to be paid upfront to the Pottery Software Corporation, an additional investment of $100,000 to modify and install the software, and around $90,000 to integrate the new software into the overall information system. So delivery and installation is estimated to take 1 year. So integrating the entire system should require an additional year. Thereafter, the IS department predicts that the scheduled software update will require further expenditures of about $15,000 each every second year, beginning in the 4th year. They will not, however, update the software in the last year of its expected useful life. So the project schedule calls for a benefit to begin in the 3rd year and to be up to speed by the end of that year. Project additional profits resulting from better and more timely sales information are estimated to be $50,000 in the 1st year of operation, and are expected to peak at $120,000 in the 2nd year of operation, and then to follow the gradually declining pattern shown in the table at the end of this box. So project life is expected to be 10 years, and from project inception, at which time the proposed system will be obsolete for this division and will have to be replaced. It is estimated, however, that the software can be sold to a smaller division of PSI and will thus have a salvage value of $35,000. The PSI has a 12% hurdle rate for capital investment and expects the rate of inflation to be about 3% over the life of the project. So assuming that the initial expenditure occurs at the beginning of the year and that all the other receipts and expenditures occur at as lump sum at the end of the year. So we can prepare the net present value analysis for the project as shown the table below. So the net present value of the project is positive, and thus the project can be accepted. So the project would have been rejected if the hurdle rate were 14%. Okay, so this was the long statement, but let's see the table. Okay, so suppose that the project was started in 2006, and then the project will then end in 2015, because from 2006 to 2015 it will be 10 years. Okay, the project actually will from 2006 to 2016. Example over here, uh, at the beginning of 2006. Okay, and then at the end of 2007, 8, 9, and then 10. So here you can see that 2006 is the asterisk t is equal to 0 at the beginning of 2006. But here all the other expenses are at the end of the year 2006. Okay, so it was said before that over here, assuming that the initial expenditures, okay, initial expenditure occurs at the beginning of the year. That means if you remember that $125,000 an initial investment of $120,000, it is an upfront payment. Okay, it is an upfront payment, and then there are additional investments of $100,000 and $90,000. They are taken at the end of that year. Okay, so the initial investment is $125,000, and then $100,000 and $90,000 at the end of the year. Okay, at the end of the year. So because at the beginning of 2006 was $125,000, at the end of the 2006 was $100,000, and this $90,000 is at the end of the next year. Because if you see that according to the statement of the problem, what we have over here is that additional investment of $100,000 to modify and install the software, and another $90,000 to integrate the new software into the overall information system. And then later on we have found that the integration took one year. So the project life is expected to be 10 years from the project inception, at which time the project system will be sold out. And over here, what is that? Assuming that the initial expenditure occur at the beginning of the year, and that all other receipts and expenditure occur as the lump sum at the end of the year, and when we can prepare the net present value. So the integration effect is here in the costs. Okay, delivery and installation is estimated to take 1 year. Okay, integrating the entire system should require an additional 1 year. Okay, so first you made the $125,000 payment, then the delivery and installation took 1 year. Okay, and then further integration and the entire system took 1 more year. So that's why there is a difference in the time between $125,000, $100,000, $90,000. So if I take as a project cash flow, so then this will be considered as the year 0 cash flow. Okay, and then this will be considered as the year 1 cash flow. This will be considered as the year 2. So 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then total are 11 years. Okay, total are 10 years, sorry, because 2015 we have 2 values, and one is for the benefit and the other is for the salvage value. Anyway, so the time starts from 2006. Okay, the project useful life is 10 years. Here it is mentioned that the project life is expected to be 10 years from the project inception. Okay, from the project inception, 10 years from the project inception. Okay, at which time the project, so 10 years from the project inception, where is the project inception? project inception is from here. So 2006 to 2007, at the end of 2006 is 1 year. Okay, at the end of 2007 is 2 years. So these were the years. Okay, and then we have the expenses. So these $125,000, $100,000, these were the initial expenses. And then the maintenance expenses were $15,000 every second year. Okay, so every second year after the system was established. So $15,000. So it is mentioned over here. Here, yes. So thereafter the IS department predicts that the scheduled software updates will require further expenditures of about $15,000 every second year. Okay, scheduled every second year. And in the last year there will be no update. Okay, so last year of the operation. So here what we can see over here is first update expenditure, then after 2 years, so and then after 2 years, and then in 2015 there will be no update expenditure. Okay, so these are the cash outflows. And then what are the cash inflows? So cash inflows are starting from $50,000. So what is that $50,000? The project schedule calls for the benefits to begin in the third year and to be paid up to speed by the end of that year. So projected additional profits resulting from better and more timely sales information are estimated to be $50,000 in the first year of operation and are expected to peak at $120,000 in the second year of operation, and then to follow gradually the declining pattern shown in the table. Okay, so starting from the $50,000 in the first year of operation. Okay, so yeah, $50,000 in the first, because here the integration was completed, and then after 1 year the benefits was $50,000, and then increased to $120,000 in the next year, and then started decreasing. $115,000, $105,000, $97,000. So this is as shown here in this table. So these were the benefits or the inflows. So net benefits are here. So which will be B minus C. So it will be 0 minus this, 0 minus this, 0 minus this, 125 minus 100,000, $90,000, and then 50 minus 0, 220 minus 15 is 105, and then you can see that every figure is subtracted from column B, from column C, and from column B, from B to, and then the figure in column C has been subtracted. So these are the net cash flows. So these net cash flows will be multiplied by the discount factor. So discount factor is 1 over 1 plus K plus P, where K is the hurdle rate. Yeah, so K is the hurdle rate. Yeah, 12%, and 3% is for the inflation. Okay, so 3% is for the inflation. So 1 plus 0.12 plus 3%, and then T is the time elapsed. Okay, so the time elapsed, because this is in the beginning, so it is time elapsed will be 0, so it will be, that is this power 0, that is will be 1, so therefore the discount factor will be 1. And here, because this is 1 year after, so it will be 0.8696. Then this will be 2 year after, so it will be 0.7561. This will be 3561, then it will be 1.65, 0.6575, and so on, like that. And this last benefit, because 2015 was repeated 2 times, so this last benefit is the salvage value. That means the amount at which the software can be sold out, which was given here. Yeah, will thus have a salvage value of $35,000 at the end of the useful life. So here it is 0.2472, the discount factor is, which is 1 over 1 plus k plus p power t, and then this will be also 0.247 because this is happening in the same year. So now what the last calculation is here. So this discount factor is multiplied by this net present value. This value is multiplied by this cash flow, because you see that in the net present value formula, here if I take this f and then 1 over 1 plus k plus p over t is the discount factor, these two factors f and then discount factor are being multiplied. Okay, so then you are getting the net present value. Okay, so a naught is basically the value happening in the year one. So we are everything we are considering within this bracket. So value happening in year one, and then if the value happening in year 0, then we will take from t is equal to 0 to n, so which is same. Okay, so if we then that will be outside that value. Okay, so now you have this net present value, and then we can add up, and then we can see that when we add up all these values together, so the net present value for this project is $17,997. Okay, so this is how the net present value is calculated. This we can also calculate in Excel as well. Okay, so for example, if I open an Excel sheet, okay, if I open an Excel sheet, and then maybe I can show it over here. Okay, so for starting from year 2020, so that is the year 2006, okay, and then 2006. So this was the start, and then it was the end of the year, and then 2007, and then 2008. Okay, and then I can just do it up to 2015, and then add one more 2015. Okay, so this is the calendar year. So then project year is 0, then 1. Okay, this was at the beginning, and then at the end of year 1, then up to here it is, sorry, 10, and then this is also 10 because it was for the salvage value. And then the cash inflows were 0, 0, 0, and then starting from here it was 50,000, and then 120,000, then 115,000, and then 105,000. These are the values given. Okay, 97,000 and 90,000 and 82,000. Okay, and 82,000, 65,000, and here it was 35,000, which was the salvage value. And then the outflow, the initial investment was 100,000, yeah, 100,000, and sorry, 125,000. Then there was $100,000 for additional one, then $90,000 for the integration. Then there was no expense, then 15,000 for the upgrade cost, no expense, and then 15,000 for the upgrade cost, no expense, and then 15,000 for the upgrade cost, and then 0, and then there is no upgrade. Okay, and then the net cash flow, that is the net cash flow, which is equal to this value, out inflow minus outflow, so it is this, and then I can copy it up to here. And now discount cash flow factor. Okay, discount cash flow factor. Okay, discounting factor or discount cash flow factor. Discount factor, maybe we can say discount factor. Discount factor. So the discount factor is now, because it depends on the number of year, and then it is 1 divided by the 1 plus the hurdle rate, which was 1.12, 12%, and plus the inflation rate, which was 3%. So for inflation I will put 0.03, and then it will be power the number of years. So year I will take from here. Okay, it will be 1. Okay, so maybe I can show it like this. Okay, and then now I can just copy it down over here. So it will be like this. Okay, so the discount factor will be 12%, and then 0.0. Yeah, there is some mistake. It should be 0.03. Yeah, and now I copy it again, so it will be here, 0.24718. and now the net present value is equal to this. So for the net present value, I will need multiply this discount factor, that is the net cash flow, with the discount factor. So it will be minus 125,000, and then now I can add it over here, and now I will add up all these values, sum add up all these values. So this will be $17,996.8. So since this value is greater than 0, is positive, so therefore we can say that with this thing in mind, and with this data in mind, the project will result positive cash flows. Okay, so however we can also perform these calculations by the inbuilt Excel function. So maybe I can input these values. So for example, these are the net cash flow values, so I can just take these net cash flow values over here. So this 125,000 and up to the year 10. Okay, remember that I'm not taking this the values up to here. For this purpose, I will just add up these last two values to represent the sum of those two values into one cell. Okay, so now with this thing in mind, now I can use the inbuilt Excel function, so which is NPV. So that NPV is a function which takes the first argument as the rate. Okay, which is the hurdle rate in this case, which is 12%, and then 3% for the inflation, so it is 15%. So I will take 0.15, and then it will take the range of values. So the range of values I will take from year 1 to year 10, and then I have to separately add the value in the year 0, and then in this way I will get the same answer as I have got in over here. So here the answer was also 7996.77. here the answer is also 7996.77. okay, so uh, as a as an alternative, you can also change the different parameters and then see the effect on the value. So for example, if the hurdle rate changes from 12% to 14%, so just can change the value of the hurdle rate from here, because 3% was the inflation rate, 12% was the hurdle rate. So now the hurdle rate is 14%, so the total of the rate will be, in this case, it will be 17%. 3 plus 14 is 17%. So now this value will become negative. So negative value will show that the net present value is negative. So it means that the project will not be should not be accepted, because net present value will be negative in this case. So another numeric model is the real options. The real options project selection model was developed based on a notion well known in financial markets. When a firm invests in something such as conducting a joint venture with another firm, it foregoes the value of alternative future investment. So economists refer to the value of an opportunity foregone as the opportunity cost of the investment made. But making such an investment often gives the firm the option to do something in future that it could not have done without making the investment, like buying out the other firm's share of the business if the volume is profitable, or selling out to other firm. So the concept of real option is that the investment leads to opportunities that would not have been available otherwise. It is not unknown for firms and other organizations to invest in an alternative that in and out and in and of itself is not profitable or beneficial, but opens options for the future that may have great promise, such as learning about a new technology, gaining access to potential new customers, and etc. So the real optional approach acts to reduce both technological and commercial risk. So the next model is the scoring model. So in an attempt to overcome some of the disadvantages of profitability models, particularly their focus on a single decision criteria, uh, a number of evaluation or selection models that use multiple criteria to evaluate a project have been developed. Such models vary widely in their complexity and information requirements. So the examples discussed illustrate some of the different types of the numeric scoring models. So in the scoring model, one of the method which is very popular is the weighted factor scoring model. So in this model, each factor is weighted relative to its importance. Weighting allows important factors to stand out, and it is a good way to include non-numeric data in the analysis. So if the factors need to sum to 1, and all weights must be set up so higher values mean more desirable, and the small differences in totals are not meaningful. So as an example of this weighted factors model, so suppose we have uh, these 5 alternatives, and each of these alternatives have been assessed on different criteria, which include appearance, braking, comfort, operating cost, original handling, reliability. So for example, if it is for some type of so for example, if it is for the selection of some car, so uh, these weights are established. So in this case, we have assumed that we have chosen the criteria and weights as shown in this figure to be used in our evaluation. So the weights represent the relative importance of the criteria measured on a 10-point scale. So for example, these are the weights. Okay, and the numbers in the parentheses show the proportion of the total weight carried by each criteria. So they add to only 0.99 due to rounding in this case. Raw weights work just as well for decision making as their percentage counterparts, but the latter are usually preferred because they are a constant reminder to the decision maker of the impact of the each of the criteria. So in the end, the scores for each alternative are added, and then the total score is obtained. Scoring models have their own characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages. So these models allow multiple criteria to be used for evaluation and decision making, including profitability models, and both tangible and intangible criteria. They are structurally simple and therefore easy to understand and use. They are a direct reflection of managerial policy, and they are easily altered to accommodate changes in the environment or managerial policy. So weighted scoring models allow for the fact that some criteria are more important than others. So these models allow easy sensitivity analysis, and the trade-offs between these several criteria are readily observable. There are certain disadvantages of the scoring model, and these are the output of a scoring model is strictly a relative measure. Project scores do not represent the value or utility associated with the project and thus do not directly indicate whether or not the project should be supported. In general, scoring models are linear in form and the elements of such models are assumed to be independent. The ease of use of these models is conducive to the inclusion of a large number of criteria, most of which may have such small weights that they have little impact on the total project score. And the unweighted scoring models assume all criteria are of equal importance, which is almost certainly contrary to the fact. And to the extent that profit or profitability is included as an element in the scoring model, this element has the advantages and disadvantages uh, for the profitability models themselves. So one of the numeric model is the window of opportunity analysis. It is a process where the cost, time, and performance specifications are defined that must be met before any research and development work. Uh, so the method for conducting such an analysis is as follows. So given a potential production process innovation, for example, the current production process is analyzed and in detail, and any element of that process that might be affected by the innovation is noted. A baseline data on the current process are collected, for example, its style, its cycle time, is its cost, and the effect of the innovation is estimated relative to usually some fraction or multiple of the baseline system. So having thus estimated the economic impact of the innovation, the decision of whether or not to undertake the development project is much simpler. So that was the window of opportunity analysis. The next is the discovery driven planning. So it is similar to the window of the opportunity uh, method. So like the window of opportunity analysis, discovery driven planning also reverses the expensive and risky traditional approach of trying out the technology to determine its benefit. This approach funds enough of the project to determine if the initial assumptions concerning cost, benefits, etc. were accurate. So when the funds are gone, the assumptions are re-evaluated to determine what to do next. So as a further explanation of this model, the idea is not to implement the project, but rather to learn about the project. The assumptions about the project are written down and analyzed carefully to determine two aspects about them. Number one, which are the critical assumptions that will make or break the desirability of the project? And number two, how much will it cost to test each of the assumptions? So the high priority deal killer assumptions that will cost the least then are ranked at the top, with the lesser and more expensive assumptions following. So if a critical assumption proves to be invalid, management must rethink its strategy and the project. So this process is not just a one-time exercise. However, the process continues as the stages of the project are executed, so that at any point in the project, management can step in and terminate it if conditions change and the project looks less promising. So, having considered so many different models, so then the question is which model should be chosen? So, selecting the type of model to aid the evaluation or selection process depends on the philosophy and wishes of the management. Generally speaking, weighted scoring models are generally favored for three reasons. So, first, they allow the multiple objectives of all organizations to be reflected in the important decisions about which projects will be supported and which will be rejected. Second, scoring models are easily adapted to changes in managerial philosophy or changes in the environment. And the third, they do not suffer from bias toward the short run that is inherent in profitability models that discount future cash flows.